Welcome to the Beyond Divorce Embracing Change podcast. My name is Michael Flores, and I will be your host while we explore the complex journey of divorce with empathy, insight, and practical knowledge. Whether you're contemplating separation, in a divorce, or looking for support post-divorce, our episodes provide expert guidance, stories, and strategies to help you through every step of the process. We are actual therapists, helping clients who sit on our couches every day through their difficulties of divorce. You are not alone. Join us as we delve in and find solutions that give you hope again. We're glad you're here.
This podcast is not intended to replace legal or personal help. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
Well, good day to you all. Glad to be back here. We have Dr. Robinson back on this topic. We're going to be doing sex, money, family, the most common reasons for divorce. What we've actually done, Dr. Robinson, it seems like we've dissected a pattern. And I know that I've had this conversation with, people in the field, whether it be an attorney, past judges, counselors, family members, the complaints we hear on that people bring to us, when they're going through divorce. And I think we've really kind of deconstructed down to about 5.
Sure.
We had 3 that we see. And as I talk to more people, it seems that there's 2 other categories. And so in total, it seems like there's about 5 things that come up. And some of them are, I guess, kind of relate to one another. So
Absolutely.
We're going to get into that with you all today. Before we start, I would like to say thank you to all of you that have subscribed to our podcast, that are finding us on our platforms, on YouTube and Apple and Spotify. And I can't keep up, but they're out there. So
yeah.
For those of you that are, thank you so much for that. Thank you for liking it. Thank you for sharing it. We've had some really cool feedback from people that have actually come in the office and are sharing it with other people. I had one person tell me not to stop, like that, please don't stop putting out podcast information. And so that's not our intention, is to stop. I think we intend on continuing to progress in that way and offer this information to you so that it can help your family and help you guys grow. So thank you again. You can find us at Brighter Possibilities Family Counseling if you're on Facebook, and Brighter Possibilities FC if you're on Instagram. And we post little things there too, little nuggets, I like to call them, for people. And they're really quick. They're not long. They're like 5 seconds or something.
Yeah.
But they're just things to consider, keep in mind, or questions that are challenging you.
Absolutely.
One of the things we did, Dr. Robinson, is we actually had questions. I don't have a question. There was supposed to be a question we need to answer. I don't have it. I think I'm going to ask our person to write the question down on a piece of paper for me and hand it to me so that we can try to answer that on this podcast. So it's going to be a surprise.
That's great. Our person or our producer?
Well, our producer is the one that's going to send me the question.
Absolutely.
I don't know what it is, so I'm excited. I know you don't. I can tell you're like, however, I love the questions. I think it's great to answer them just on the spot.
Absolutely.
On the podcast. So we're going to try to answer one of those today.
I'm happy to do that.
So we'll see if we can get to that today. All right.
Okay. All right, great.
So let's jump in to our episode here. So do you suppose it'd be better to just go over what the 5 are up front? Or do you think we just start with 1 and dive into 1 and then go to the second one?
Oh, let's just start with all 5. Let's just
okay. What are the 5?
And so the 5 are sex, money, family, particularly kids, but I want to throw family in there because sometimes in-laws gets in the way.
Family members can also play a part. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And then
family of origin, as we call it.
Absolutely.
In our field. Okay.
Absolutely. And then there's substance abuse, which is kind of connected to mental health, which is the 5th one.
Sure. So we've separated the 2 because we did it based on the complaint.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we did it as, so let's go over that again. Sex, money, family, kids, substance abuse, and mental health.
Absolutely.
So those are typically the 5 prongs when people are filing divorce, going to divorce, that they stem all their stuff from. It seems like that's where they're pulling, right? So they're pulling from stuff that they're pulling from one of those 5 in most cases. Yeah. Okay. So which one do you want to start with?
Sex.
Let's do it. Let's get into it. So
typically, the easy one is the infidelity part, right?
Right.
Somebody cheated. Somebody stepped outside of the covenant, if you will.
Cheated or cheating?
cheated or cheating. Ooh, yeah. So they haven't stopped.
And well, yeah, okay.
Absolutely. Or there's also the piece where sex is not enough. There's not enough sex in the marriage. And then, of course, there's pornography.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a layer. It's just the sexual component in general. Like there's not enough. There's, there's I'm not satisfied. You're bringing things into our sexual bedroom, whether it be an affair, pornography.
Right.
What it really stimulates from is like it's a problem that doesn't get resolved or is unresolved, and it festers.
Right.
And I think, and so some people find that as a layer that builds in enough to the point of we need to call it quits or cut it off.
Yeah, and my heart breaks over this issue because sex is one of those things that's supposed to be fun and enjoyable and shared, absolutely. And somehow it turns into this horrible thing that becomes despised. And in my mind, on one side, I can see the analogy of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Sex has been so painful, so horrible. It's not a positive experience for me. I don't want sex anymore, so I throw sex out. And then on the other side, I love sex so much. I like it so much. I'm not getting it in my partnered relationship. Yep. I'm going to go look for it wherever I can.
Yeah, I'm going to fulfill it somewhere else. Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's just the collateral damage that it can create going either way, either side.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you mentioned both sides of that deal and that coin and how that works.
And I want to point out something.
Okay.
Also, while we're there, is that just listening to my analogy, I bet our audience is picking what side is more common with men versus what side is more common with women. But I got to tell you, that that traditional context is changing.
What do you mean?
Meaning that typically what we used to see was men mostly complaining about not getting enough satisfaction within the marriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, historically.
Yeah, historically, yes. And so, but that pendulum is switching.
Really?
Yeah, I'm seeing more women that are complaining about not getting the satisfaction that they desire, in the marriage. And so, and I want to point that out because, as we studied and built our career and our education and our experience around these topics, we would dissect them according to culture, according to gender, right? According to age groupings, right? And I think it's important for us to not get stuck in that, because when the pendulum starts swinging, then we don't know how to swing our bat, and so it becomes very important to hear what is happening, listening to what's going on, so that we can do our best to offer solution to what our audience is experiencing and what our clients and families who come to see us, what they're experiencing.
I will say whether there's satisfaction or there's enough sex or not enough, whether it's a quantity versus a quality thing, because I think they both play into that. Regardless of what it is, I believe that sex is an integral part of a marriage because of what it was actually what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be with your partner.
Absolutely.
And it's supposed to be a marital thing between these two people. It's like covenant.
Absolutely.
In a way. And so to me, it is a important topic. I would encourage our listeners to say that if you're in a marriage now,
yeah,
and the sex thing comes up frequently or often, it just seems like it's like one of us is not, one or both of us are just not, we're not where we're supposed to be. I highly would say talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if your discussions aren't leading to ways where y'all can, coexist in this, seek out some help, because my fear is that it will eventually bleed over into something happening that could cause you a potential divorce.
Absolutely.
And if you are divorced as a result of sex being the main thing, do you suppose that it comes up in the next relationship?
Absolutely.
So it's like one of those things that doesn't resolve until what? Until
you find the solution within yourself. Like, what's the issue with me in this situation? And I love what you said about talk about it, because I think that our audience should understand that when we say talk about it, notice you didn't say argue about it.
How I said it matters.
Yeah. You did not say complain about it,
No, I didn't.
right? You didn't say criticize it. And so I want to encourage our audience to think about their approach when they begin to talk about these things, because, have you heard people say, I'm tired of talking about the same thing over and over and over again.
I hear that all the time.
Right. And so I venture to wonder if they are truly tired of talking about the same thing, or they're tired of hearing the same tone.
You've asked that?
I have.
And what response did you get?
That.
Like it was a challenge. Like I've never thought about.
I never thought about that.
I hope our listeners take the moment to think about that.
I do too. And because I think it makes a difference.
Right.
Right. Because when we talk about hearing the same tone, it's related to the fact that nobody's mind has changed.
Yeah. What was that saying that we had about like? I think I said it in one of the podcasts, convincing a man against his will. He's of the same opinion still.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you have to be willing to want to hear it. And you may not like the way that it's given to you or the way that they serve it. It doesn't mean that you can't dig through that and figure out like what's really there. I mean, it's kind of weird, but my brother-in-law, he loves pistachios.
Yeah.
But they're the hardest thing to get into.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to me because he like, you could get a peanut or something else, but no, it's a pistachio. It's more expensive. It's unique, but yet it's so difficult to get into for him. So,
and this is the thing, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have to move on to the next topic for the sake of time. But this is the thing. I think one of the things that I'm hearing on this issue of sex and divorce and how the pendulum is switching is that I think historically, women have been of the mindset, I'm willing to give myself for the person that I love to experience this sexual connection.
And is that a mindset they should have?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that mindset. I think where the challenge comes in is that they never thought about their own pleasure in the process.
Oh, wow.
Right?
They've negated from their own.
Right. And so because I believe that sex should be about what I'm bringing and what I'm giving, more so than what I'm receiving. And so if both partners are looking at it from what I'm bringing and what I'm giving, and I don't have to worry about what I'm getting because they're committed to giving and bringing, then I think that we bring a mutual experience that is satisfying.
So you think the issue people are having, I know we're going to move on, but the issue people are having with the sex in their marriage is that they don't believe their partner's giving enough to them.
Absolutely.
That's usually it. Okay. So yeah, but that is a topic that comes up in reasons for divorce. Let's move on to money.
Yeah.
So tell me about how the money plays into.
Yeah. So the Bible talks about money. Do you know that Jesus in Scripture talks more about money than he does faith?
You talking about the red letters?
Yes.
Okay.
He talks more about money than he does about faith.
You're going to have to explain that.
Right. Well, I think that he understood that the time in which he showed up in the earth to minister to the people, that the thing that made them most anxious and most depressed was their economic status.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he has that story of it'll be harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Not saying that being wealthy or rich is sin. It's just harder for them to enter in to the kingdom of heaven.
And so one of the main things that he said when he was talking about money is that he said, you can't serve two masters.
What does that mean?
You can't serve God and money. You will either love the one and hate the other.
So what do you do then?
Right. And so you understand that God is the head of it all. All of the resources that we have belongs to him, right? We're stewards of it. It's not my money in the first place.
What is a steward?
And a steward is a person who is given an assignment to oversee and manage somebody else's resources.
Okay, I think that's the point. A steward is a manager.
Yeah.
So money is meant to be managed.
It's meant to be managed.
Understood. And so how does it come up in divorce? Is it mismanaged?
Of course. It becomes a tool of manipulation.
Oh. I had a scenario once where this couple was coming in for couples counseling, and they were extremely wealthy. Now, when I say wealthy, I'm talking like, I'm just going to say millions in profit. Like, that's what we take home, right. Millions. So we got private jets. We've got, anyway, and long story short here, it was really sad to me because you have the wife and the husband coming in for their work with it. And I like to look backwards into some of their solutions. So I said, at some point in time, I'm assuming this marriage was strong. I'm like, oh. I was like, when do you, and I pointed at the wife, I said, when were you most satisfied overall as a spouse, as a wife, as his partner in this marriage? And she said, in the beginning. And the look on his face, he was so in shock. And I said, can you elaborate more? And she said, yeah, we were broke. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't understand. She said, when we were broke, it was about our journey together. We didn't have anything. All we had was each other. Mm-hmm. And she goes, we didn't eat as good. I mean, we ate poor. We didn't get to go to different restaurants like we can do now. She said, but we ate. But we ate. And we ate together. And I think that's what was missing. She said, we have every resource we would ever need, mm-hmm. but I don't have my husband. Mm-hmm. That's exactly how it was stated. So to me, it was like the money, it wasn't used to manipulate, but the money became the master. Mm-hmm. And they forgot about each other. Yeah. And in their eyes, the husband was like, but look at how good I did for us. Look at what I created for us to have basically anything we want. Right. And to her, what she wanted was him. Right. And what he was not worth money. It was something else. So
yeah, I don't want us to get caught up on that, because the argument can be made that it was money, what the money was turned into a tool of manipulation, right. In the sense that because of what I've done, I want you to honor me differently than how you honored me when I was broke. Mm.
Yeah, that makes sense now. Right. I can see where you're going with that.
And so, and I think that we have to be careful. So I start off kind of referencing the Bible on this topic. Mm-hmm. And could have easily done that with sex, of course, but referencing the Bible related to money. What Scripture says, and people misquote this, they'll say, money is the root of all evil. Now, I don't know if they're misquoting Scripture or if they're coming up with their own philosophy.
Okay.
But that's not what the Bible says. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all sorts of evil. All right. And so, because the Bible goes on to say that money answereth all things, and what that means is it is the tool in which we use to get the things that we need to exist and operate and
desire.
And desire. Mm-hmm. And in society, in culture. God is not against economy. I mean, his kingdom has an economy. When you look at Scripture, it talks about the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and they that dwell therein, right? And what that means is that God owns something. And not only does he own it, but he has equipped it to produce.
Right.
And that production is to provide a service or a product, right? And so we need money. That's my whole point with this in relationship. And when it comes up in divorce, we do need money. But we need to have the position of I have money and not that money has me.
There you go. And if money has you,
yeah,
then that can come up definitely in your marriage as part of a layer that feeds into a divorce. So let's go into family.
Sure.
What layers are built into that when it comes to a reason that people would get divorced? How does that come up?
I think the most common is kids, so I want to save that for the last piece.
Most common is kids, in that section.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I want to save that for the last piece in this discussion. I want to start with family of origin, in-laws, and outside influences that impact, and so I think it kind of starts with the fact that I've seen this on both sides, whether it's the husband or the wife, who maintains their loyalty to their family of origin to the detriment of their family of choice.
Say that again.
That they will maintain their loyalty to their family of origin to the detriment of their family of choice. Meaning that, again, I'm going to reference scripture. The Bible said the two shall become one. Therefore, a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave unto his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think we oftentimes will see a problem with the leave. They don't leave emotionally. They don't leave psychologically. And that gets in the way of them cleaving to the spouse. But I think it's both the husband and the wife that often sees that.
Well, I think it then gets, I think maybe even subconsciously the parents develop a relationship with their children where maybe things like enmeshment and everything else builds because they're filling in the void because of that loyalty to maybe the family. And so what they don't realize they're doing to their kid is their kid grows up and their kid can't completely be independent of them either.
Sure.
And so it's like a cycle that never ends. Absolutely. Until someone has the courage to say, I maybe not like the situation I'm in, but I chose this,
right.
And so it's, how do I say this? When you said that, it struck something with me because I think when we do this work with these court cases and we have like reunification or we have family counseling, we typically aren't bringing in like the grandparents but I will tell you, the more I've asked about things like that, like, tell me about your relationship with grandma and grandpa. How do they feel about your dad? How do they feel about your mom? Or your aunts and uncles? How do they feel about they know.
Yeah.
And so there is a layer of influence built into that. And here's what's sad. When you're struggling in your marriage, who are you likely to go to?
My mom or my dad.
Yeah, the grandparent in this case, if it's the kid. But you're right. If you're struggling in your marriage, you're going to your parents.
Right.
And if your parents hear all this stuff about how horrible your husband or wife is, what are they likely going to do to make you feel better?
Yeah, tell you you're right. Oh, that's all right, baby. They'll comfort you. They will encourage you and give you the support that you're not getting from your spouse.
Do you know that I think, and I don't know this to be true, but I think that a lot of these people, when they go through divorce, I think a lot of their families helping them financially with them.
Oh, yeah. I believe that.
And like the parents are supplying the parent to get divorced. And so then if they decide, I don't want to divorce, or we're making progress, so the therapy's helpful, they have to now become disloyal to, we paid you for it.
Yeah.
And, we paid for you to get divorced, and now you're getting back with them?
Yeah. They're angry about that. Yeah. So I'm thinking about a couple of scenarios that I've witnessed where in one scenario, the problem was that the wife was frustrated that the husband wasn't working, but then she discovered that the reason why they were able to maintain their lifestyle was because he was receiving money from his mother, and she was livid. She was like, I don't want to be dependent on your mom. Right. And his point was, what difference does it make where it comes from as long as it's legal? And they struggled to see eye to eye on how what needed to happen to be on the same page in managing that, and not seeing that this was not only a mother issue, but it was also a family issue. I mean, I'm sorry, a money issue, but also a family issue.
Well, that's why and literally they can all be builds off of, you could go, watch this, you could go to your parent and complain about the sex. And I say, if you're real close to your parents, you say, oh my gosh, they just want to have sex constantly, or the opposite, I'm not getting enough, blah, blah. Well, she was always like that. She's always tight with that, and blah, 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 blah. And then you go into and then she wants me to go buy her all these things. And so you see how you start using these complaints, you tell your parents, and then your parents go, you seem really unhappy.
Yeah.
I mean, are y'all going to try to make this work? What are you doing? Oh, I think I'm going to get divorced. And they're like, okay, well, how can we help? And so it gets convoluted. When in reality, in most cases, what people are all looking for is some kind of resolve.
Yeah. Yeah.
some kind of way to solve this problem. But when you go outside the circle to these other entities, sometimes the influence doesn't really help you get resolution as much as it can create more turmoil.
Just before we bring the kids into this context, I think where the challenge comes in is that oftentimes the in-laws will bring the lens of their own experiences to the situation that is that is not relevant to what's going on in the context of their children. And so if a mother-in-law was abused and abandoned by her husband, and now all of a sudden her daughter is having some challenges in her marriage, she sees it through the lens and the trauma of that abuse and that abandonment that she experienced. And so now she's trying to influence her daughter to leave him before he leaves you.
Yeah, right. She's projecting that her own stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so so it becomes very important that you're able to differentiate what is happening in your own situation versus what others are trying to convince you of what's happening in your situation.
Correct. That makes sense. So for time's sake, let's get into we have kids, substance abuse, and mental health. Is that right? Yeah. Is there anything you want to say about how kids can?
Yeah. And so the thing that we just talked about with in-laws, similarly, though it presents itself a little different because typically these children are underage, the same thing is happening because we're talking about enmeshment.
Yep.
When we're talking about codependency.
Yep.
Right. And so I need the loyalty of my child. Right. And so I'm going to use that as a tool to get back at my spouse, or I think in a previous podcast, we talked about alienation, and we talked about the appreciation that the non-reunifying parent desires from their children, because we kind of identified this point that children are not typically wired to appreciate, they're wired to desire, right? And so parents will use that desire to manipulate. Like, I'll give you what you want. You want a cell phone? Come live with me. I'll give you a cell phone. Come live with me, and you won't have that ridiculous curfew. Come live with me, and I'll let you go out with your friends on the weekend, right? Your mom is just being strict, or your dad is just being a pain, right? That's not fair. I mean, you're only going to be a kid once.
Yeah, well, now you're telling me what I'm going to get, and now you're also telling me what I'm going to lose.
Yeah,
that is the worst form of manipulation, I think.
Absolutely,
is not only am I going to tell you what you'll get if you come over here,
mm-hmm.
but I'm going to tell you what it's going to cost you if you don't.
Yeah,
and then you do it together. I mean, you're talking about a double whammy, and these poor children. Yeah. Everything about their love now becomes what?
Yeah, it becomes a material base, like a quid pro quo, if you will.
Well, I have to earn your love. I have to do this so that you'll love me, or you'll give me these things as long as I do what you want me to do.
Absolutely.
It's not love.
Right. Because guaranteed that later on down the road, it is going to be brought up again. All this I did for you, and you're going to turn your back on me like...
Well, here's what happens. The kids grow up, and then when they want something from you, they do the same thing to you. Oh, you want me to come over for Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I need $5,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, well, I don't have $5,000. Well, then what am I coming for?
Yeah.
They'll do that. And these parents are like, oh my gosh, the way they treat me. And then I look at them and I go, well, how'd you raise them?
Yeah.
Did you raise them with material things and tell them, like, I'll give you things if you come stay with me? So guess what? Now they're doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
Because you taught them that love looks like this.
Right.
Because you said it. They manipulated their desire. How? I mean, just be ready.
Yeah.
I tell parents, if you're alienating your kids, be prepared. It's coming.
Absolutely.
And I don't need the other parent to tell you that, because it's just going to create a problem. I will tell you as a counselor, just be prepared. Things will show up. Absolutely. And then in what people love to do when that happens is they blame shift.
Yeah.
They'll put it on something external. Well, that's because so-and-so, or that's because of this. You know what? If you really want to solve most problems, just look at yourself first. Own your stuff. Start with you, and then you build out from there. That's what I think. Well,
I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
Because you're the only one that you can control. And when you try to control others, you create chaos.
We still have time?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do the other two.
All right.
Substance use, how does that come up? And mental health. I know you said that they're you wanted to kind of tie them together.
Well, yeah,
but those are the other two of reasons that come up for divorce.
And it's appropriate to separate them out. We tie them together because of the field, substance use disorder, substance abuse disorder, all of that. They're, DSM diagnosis there. That's, categorized under mental health. But, as far as, the layperson as a whole, don't see these as connected.
Right. They seem as separate.
They see them very much as separate. And so I think it's okay to separate them. But when you talk about substance use, substance abuse, absolutely problematic. Because how can I trust someone who is relying on a substance to function? And then when they're functioning under the influence of that substance, is it truly functioning?
Right. Well, then we get into the issue of safety. I don't believe they're safe. They're trying to drive with the kid in the car, and they're under the influence, and so safety is always the key that comes up. It seems to come up with substance use and even mental health. They're not mentally stable, right? So they're not safe, and that word is what's used a lot in court. Is they're unsafe because, and it's mental health, substance use could be a combination of both. The thing I've learned here, Dr. Robinson, with these two things, is that when individuals go through the divorce process and through the court proceedings, they'll typically see things in other people that they're part of. Like, it's really funny because I'm not saying it happens in all cases, but in most cases, like if you've been married to this person and you're complaining about their alcoholism, it's not uncommon for them to go, well, I'm assuming at some level you drink too. It'd be weird for you to, like, you just married an alcoholic, but you don't do anything. You don't drink. You don't. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I know it has happened where one person doesn't drink and the other person just drinks to no end. But it typically find themselves with other people that are kind of like them.
This is true, and there are a few exceptions.
Oh, sure.
And because I'm thinking about a scenario where he definitely was an alcoholic who was in I don't know what's the word, remission. That's not quite the word, but he was sober.
Yeah, he was in sobriety. He was currently in sobriety.
Currently in sobriety. And had been doing well, found this woman, married her, and something happened, and he relapsed, right? And at first, of course, it started out as no big deal, but it's a big deal when it's someone who's truly an alcoholic. He relapsed and he drank, and he didn't get drunk, but he drank until he kept on drinking, right?
Yeah.
And it became an issue, and so it took her by surprise.
Sure.
And in an effort to remain committed and loyal to the relationship, it cultivated some challenges on her own.
Sure.
Other mental health issues rose up for her, right? A great deal of depression, a great deal of loneliness, and this is the thing, like. Mental health issues oftentimes are present but dormant until something triggers.
I don't think people know that much.
Yeah.
It could be triggered in a relationship. It could be triggered in a loss, a trauma, a death in the family, some significant event.
The most common that I've seen, and I'm not sure what the research shows, but the most common that I've seen is a major loss.
That makes sense.
Right. If it's a loss of a job, a loss of a home.
But would divorce be considered a loss?
Divorce is definitely considered a loss.
So then you see it trigger something in the person too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I'll say this with mental health. The two most common things that come up, it seems, with the divorce mental health that I hear all the time is narcissism.
Yeah.
And borderline or bipolar.
Yeah.
I said two, but I guess that's three. But
yeah.
And that complaint comes out all the time.
It does.
And it the problem for us though is we hear it so much that we almost like are desensitized to it. And plus we actually have I told Armando this once. I said, as a clinician, I feel like it's a slap in the face when someone comes in, uses a mental health diagnosis.
Right.
And that there's never been a diagnosis. I read something or I saw a TikTok.
Sure.
And they come in here using that language with us, and we're the ones that actually can do the diagnostics.
Right.
And we're not using that language.
Absolutely.
But they're describing them as such. And I guess I'll just say it kind of bothers me because I'm like, well, hold on. Are we talking about a true diagnosis or just what you see or what you sense? Because I don't think people know.
People don't know that narcissism is actually pretty hard to diagnose.
It's
rare.
rare.
It's very rare. And so,
You know what I say to people when they say they're narcissistic?
what do you say?
What type?
They don't know any types. They don't know the type.
They know one. There's multiple types of narcissism.
And so,
You laugh because you know what I'm talking about. Because I'm that frustrated at this point with it. But I'm not saying it doesn't exist. And what people, I think, confuse is that narcissism is really saying they're selfish.
right.
They're all about themselves, okay? I will tell you, I have had narcissists come to therapy because of a divorce.
Right.
I have had court-ordered clients here that are truly meet the criteria.
Right.
And I've been doing this more than a decade. And you want me to tell you how many times I've actually seen a narcissist in my office that I can tell? You mean know how many times?
How many?
2.
I believe that.
I've had 2 legitimate people that I would say, if they don't come back, a psychological deal, it would surprise me.
I would take you another round higher that narcissism is rare. Narcissism is a type of personality disorder.
Yeah.
Right.
We used to call Axis 2.
Right. And so personality disorders in general are rare. Right.
I'm glad you said it.
And so, so you have borderline personality disorders that you hear people say.
That's Axis 2, or used to be called Axis 2.
And
Yeah.
narcissism, right? Those two are actually fairly rare. Now, the bipolar piece is a bit more common.
Right.
However, I will say this, that most of my clients who come in to use the term bipolar, there's no diagnosis for bipolar, right? And I don't think that they fully understand what the criteria is for bipolar. And then again, and I have asked what type, and they don't know. They just say bipolar. They just think bipolar, right? And it's like, let's not use those words. Let's not use that terminology in session. Was
there an evaluative process that occurred for us to get to that conclusion?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and so when the answer is no, then we're not going to use it in session.
No. Because it does change. Does it not change how the person sees the other person, which then influences how you can achieve solutions?
Absolutely. So this is what I've been practicing in session now. This is something that recently came to my attention in a discussion in a setting where this is the thought. I'm going to give my pastor Rick actually credit for this. He made this statement, and it totally impacted and influenced the way I do therapy now. He said, people's greatest dissatisfaction is not because of the largeness of their problem. He said, people's greatest dissatisfaction is because of the smallness of their goal. And what that means, how I interpreted that, is that people are glorifying their problems over glorifying their goals. And so what I try to help clients understand is that, listen, I'm not asking you to ignore the problem. What I'm asking you to do is to identify your goal and give more attention to your goal than you are to your problem. Let your problem influence how you pursue your goal.
So that changes how we dialogue. Acknowledging the problem exists.
Yes.
You know what's funny is, if I came to you as a client,
Mm-hmm.
and all I told you was what I hoped for, I never told you what was wrong.
Yeah.
I just told you what I hoped for. Do you think you can figure out what my problem was?
Yes.
It's funny because I literally I love this. What a phenomenal scenario.
Yeah.
Not a court case or anything like that. Lady comes in, says, I'm so embarrassed by what's going on in my life, I don't even have the courage to tell you.
Okay.
And I said, well, then don't.
Yeah.
And they said, then how can you help me? I said, let's just try this instead. Can you just tell me what you're hoping for?
Exactly.
And when they told me what they hoped for, it got real easy to see what the problem was. You know what's funny is, I only had like 3 sessions with them. Didn't have to see him after that.
Yeah.
Still never told me what the problem was.
Yeah.
I still don't even know. I can guess. I can tell you what I think it was. But in actuality, we never discussed the problem. We only discussed what she wanted. So going back to that statement, that you made, I think it's completely accurate, but doesn't it also lend itself to the modality that we like to use around
The
here?
solution focus. I think that's why I got excited about it.
Oh yeah, solution oriented.
I was like, that's just solution focus
all day long.
All day long.
It's funny how it just comes up. It comes up even pastoring.
Absolutely.
Comes up everywhere. It's beautiful. Jesus was solution focused.
Absolutely. I believe it.
Okay, let me recap real quick. We'll finish up. 5 reasons people typically end up in the courtroom: sex, money, family, substance use, mental health. I think what we want you listeners to hear is we kind of dissected we dissected each piece as quickly as we could. There's so much to it, though. I mean, this could probably be like a whole series. But in reality, what we're really doing for you is trying to say, if any of these 5 things are coming up in your relationship, in your marriage, you need to be discussing them, right? There needs to be a conversation.
Yeah.
If you need help with a therapist, come see us, come see someone that understands family systems. But it needs to be dialogued. If you've already been divorced, or you're in divorce or post-divorce, and one of these 5 was there may still be a hole there that needs resolution.
Absolutely.
And we're encouraging you to go be on the lookout. We're now giving you the essence of, we understand what the 5 are. We know where it feeds itself. Once you know where it's fed, now you know where to start the conversation around solution building. It's really cool. It's around this particular topic area. Now you can dissect it better. So that's what I hope the listeners gather today from this. Please, I'm sure there'll be questions on this one, but please ask questions. I'll ask our producer, did we have a question we can review, or are we at time? What do we have? Okay, let me go over this question real quick. We'll try to do this as fast as we can. Oh gosh, this is fun. Okay, here's a question we're going to answer. How do you determine when it is the right time to introduce a significant other into your kid's life after divorce? That's the question. Any advice on how to help introduce and adjust to a blended family and dating again after divorce is appreciated. So any advice that we can offer, or really feedback.
Absolutely.
I call it feedback. I won't say advice. It's hard to advise when we only have one part of the section, right? So we can give feedback on it. We can give what we understand about it. But let's go back to the question. How do you determine when it's right time to introduce a significant other into your kid's life after divorce? Dr. Robinson, you go first.
All right. So this is a very good question. I like this question.
Okay.
So I think that, one, you don't want to rush the introduction, right? You need to get to know the other person first. You need to become very familiar with the person before you introduce this person into the life of your children, right? Primarily because it's not good practice for you to not be fully comfortable with this person that you're introducing to your children, and you have to adjust on the fly, and now you and your kids are adjusting to this new person that you met, right? And so and it also depends on how often you're connecting with this person. How often are you meeting up with them, right? And so it's hard to say, a measurement of time, whether it's, 6 weeks.
Yeah, the right time. So
yeah, it's hard to measure time. It really depends on the factors of how much time you're actually spending with this person over a period of time, to where you developed a sense of comfort with them. Can you clearly state that this is someone that you want to invest in, that this is someone that you want to invest in your life? Are you feeling safe? Do y'all have shared goals, shared values? All right. That's one. All right. The other piece of this, give some advice.
Okay.
Right. It says give some advice on.
It says any advice on how to help and adjust to a blended family and dating again after divorce. Appreciate it. So do you mind if I take over a little
Sure.
bit? Okay. So let's start with Dr. Robinson's. I agree that you need to know who the person is. You said significant in this question, so that part rang a bell for me, because significant would mean that this person is probably either engaged, or you're talking about engaging with one another at some level. So I think timing really comes down to your children.
Yeah.
It's going to come down to knowing your kid's current status. Like if your kid's kind of like, I just go with the flow, it may not be as such a big deal, but you got a kid that's a little concerned that it's still rocky.
Yeah.
Things are still up in the air. The divorce is still intense. It's probably not a good time. I can just tell you that right now. You can probably tell just by that. By you asking this question, I'm under the assumption that you are really struggling with going, there's a lot of rockiness. There's still some uncertainty, but I really want to do this. So make sure it's about your kid, not you.
Yeah.
You introduce them to the kid when the kid is prepared. not you're prepared. Now, if this person is a significant person, like this is a fiance, this is or going to be one, then yes, I think there needs to be an introduction. So let me just say this. That question of right time is really going to come down to two pieces. Knowing that person, knowing how that person is, you know that person well enough, and that your child's current status, where they are in the process. That's how you can determine the right time. So rather than telling you how to introduce them, we'll just answer your question on when the right time is. So that's how you can discern the right time.
Yeah.
But there's a how there, and I don't. That's not what the question was. It's the right time. So we'll leave it at that.
It's about the right time. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I like what you said. It's all about the status of the kids, and yet you have to be careful that you're not giving too much power to the kids to hold your relationship hostage.
And I think that's the fear that parents have is that, and I don't think it's about the power. I think it's more about going, is my kid able to manage things currently how they are? You know, if they are they are not feeling secure, things are not well going between the homes, the divorce is extremely contentious, it may not be an appropriate time.
Right.
One way you'll know is you might ask, here's one thing you could do. And I said, how? Here, I'm getting into it real quickly. You can ask your kid, how do you feel about me dating again?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ask the kid. The kid goes, ooh, you can see their reaction. You know, ooh, if I introduce somebody right now, I'm in trouble. Right? Or they may just be like, I think that's cool, Mom. Would that make you happy? But like, yeah, it does make me happy. I have this friend of mine that we're real close to, and I think that we're getting pretty serious. And I'd like you to meet him at some point. How do you feel about it?
Mm-hmm.
And you just keep it simple, non-taboo. But just asking how they feel about you dating again is a good way to figure out what the current status of your kid is.
Right. And see, and this is the thing, like, you know, ask them before you're even thinking about dating. You know that you're probably going to date again. Bring it up to the kids. You know,
Okay.
You know, just bring it up front so that when it starts happening, they're not caught off guard because you've already had that conversation.
What I would do as a third party, as a clinician, if you came to me with this question, so if you came to me with this question in therapy, this is what I would actually do. I would kick you out of the session. I'd bring your kid in, and I'd say, are either of your parents dating right now?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you know? And they go, well, I don't know. Would you like to know? And most of them are going to probably say yes. Boom, I already got it done for you. Now we can come into the session. I bring you back in and say, hey, I asked your son or your daughter about dating again, and they said they'd like to know. So are you dating?
Mm-hmm.
And you get to tell them, yeah, I'm dating. And then I get to go, because now they're going to be curious. Now I get to go, would you like to meet them? See, that's how we do it as third parties.
Absolutely.
In conversations in therapy. That's how we can help you discern right time. So don't be opposed to letting a therapist help you with that too. That way it's specific to your kid. Something to think about too, right?
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. There you go. Answer the question. What do you think?
I loved it. We should do more of that.
Keep doing more of those.
Absolutely.
Keep sending your questions. We should have a link down in the comment section of the box. So you'll see a link there. You can pose a question. We're going to do our best to answer as many as we can.
Absolutely.
So awesome. Thanks for being here. Keep moving forward, everyone.
Absolutely.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank you all so much for making this such a wonderful 2024. We have just enjoyed being a part of this process with all of you. And I want to let you know that we were going to be back in 2025 starting January 7th. That'll be the first Tuesday of 2025, January 7th. So be on the lookout for us. We'll have our episodes popping up and coming out for you. We just so much thank you for being here and being a part of this process with us. And just keep moving forward, everyone. See you in 2025.